Hi, I'm Dan Laschober, and I'm running for state representative in District 26, encompassing the business-friendly and always sunny city of Wilsonville, up through Sherwood, King City, South Hillsborough, and to the west the more rural communities of Reedville and Aloha. First, I want to say thanks to the West Side Economic Alliance for inviting candidates in contested races to submit a video in lieu of in-person meetings so that members and voters can get a better chance to know us. By way of introduction, I'm a husband of 36 years to Sandy, and I'm the proud parent of 2 children we raised in the community who both attended public schools from primary age on up through the university level. And today I have a son who's a mechanical engineer and a daughter who's pursuing a PhD in bioengineering. My career started by forming a partnership with my brother in general contracting, focusing on residential construction. But after the economy went south, I left the business, returned to school, and earned a BS in finance from Arizona State University. And then I went on to get an MBA from Northwestern University. I was recruited out of school to join a large international manufacturing company, and I spent about a dozen years in senior finance roles with that firm before I left it and came to Oregon. When I got here, I joined a small consulting company focused on performance management, and for the past 12 years, I've been self-employed as a sole proprietor in that same industry. I moved here 20 years ago to raise a family, but this is not the same Oregon I remember. With each passing legislative session, we pass new laws, new rules, undermining businesses' ability to compete and discouraging new businesses from forming and moving here. I'm running to be a voice for fiscal sanity, and as a former trustee for a pension fund, I understand the fiduciary responsibility that comes with being a good steward of the public's money. I'm running to be a champion for education, and I'm keenly aware of the opportunity it creates, having grown up in a large family, being number 9 in a family of 10, and being born into a family of modest means. My mother was a school teacher and my father worked for the Forest Service. They didn't have the money to afford to send me to school. So I worked, I borrowed. I started out in a community college before moving on to Arizona State and earning a 4-year degree. I'm running to be a leader in transparency and accountability. There'll be no more Cover Oregons on my watch. And lastly, I'm running to represent the constituents in this district. This district is split roughly evenly between Democrats and Republicans, with non-affiliated voters making up more than 33% of the electorate. In the past elections, we've leaned conservative, but the current representative won with just over 50% of the vote, yet votes 99% of the time or more with Portland Democratic leadership. That is a failure to represent the citizens in this district. And now I'd like to address 2 questions that were asked of all candidates by the WEA. The first is, how will I make a difference in bringing the 2 parties together so that there's a more effective working relationship in the legislature? Simply put, I think that's a 2-part answer. Number 1 is, as a consultant, you need to work with the parties to address things at a higher level. So taking the hardest issue before us today, climate change, we need to agree that no party has the upper hand or the moral high ground when it comes to wanting cleaner air, clean water, now and for our future generations. And secondly, I think there's a structural change that has to occur. And as a primary example, we take a look at the emergency clause, which is attached to many bills in the legislature. So in a regular session, you might have 3,000 bills or ideas introduced. 1,500 of those make it into bills and get approved and get passed into law. But half of those have emergency clause attached to them, which undermines the ability of citizens to gather votes and contest a new law through the initiative process. That has to change structurally before I think we can move toward a more collegial debate kind of atmosphere and toward more comity amongst the parties. And the second question is, what role will my position play as a state representative in supporting the economy as we transition to a post-COVID-19 timeframe? I think it's fair to say nobody really knows what the economy will look like 8 or 9 months from now when we swear in the new legislative assembly. but several things certainly will have to go on. One, there'll be a post-mortem. Things like unemployment insurance and new systems, we're going to have to invest in that. And secondly, we've seen that it's critical for access to credit and liquidity for companies to survive. So the federal government has stepped in immediately, but there may be things we have to do at the state level to help with that situation. There are probably some regulations that we've learned that inhibit our ability to react swiftly to these pandemics. Those are going to have to be addressed as well. It's clear, though, that I think as a state representative, supporting the constituents in your district and working to ensure that they have access to information, you act as a liaison. And it's fair to say that coming out of this pandemic, or at least in the immediate sense, is every region's going to be different. So a representative is going to be a good conduit to what's needed in the district, what's safe and effective in terms of opening, and how we go forward from there. And now I'd like to wrap up by saying thanks again to the Westside Economic Alliance for hosting these videos and sharing them with members and the public. If you're in my district, I ask for your vote. If you vote for me, you'll get a representative who truly respects the will of voters, a finance professional who brings a desperately needed skill set to Salem, and someone who won't be swayed by the loudest voices and special interests. With that, I wish you good health, and may we all be blessed with a speedy return to normalcy as soon as it's safe to do so. Thanks again.